If ever in the world there was a person that could say, God, thank you for the information. God, thank you for the common sense. And God, thank you for the wisdom. Now be about your, whatever God does, because I'm cool now. I am like loaded up with wisdom, knowledge, understanding. If anybody in the world could have done that and could have gone out and made decisions based on their own intuition, their own wisdom, their own discernment and judgment, it would be Solomon. But when Solomon addresses the question of how do we know what to do? How do we choose which path to take? How do we know up front what to do now so that later on it's a happy ending and not a train wreck? How do we make decisions financially, relationally, you name it? How do we make decisions? How do we get on paths now that take us to a place we ultimately want to be and a place that God ultimately wants to be? How do we make those decisions? When Solomon began to answer that question, he did not say, well, I'll tell you how I do it. I just draw on all this vast wisdom and knowledge and experience that God has given me. I just kind of go it on my own. And if you want to make good decisions, you just need more information. You just need to ask God for more wisdom. You just need more understanding. You just need to read my books. When Solomon answers this question, he says something that really should take us by surprise based on what we know about him. And here's what he says. And if you grew up in church or around church, these are very, very familiar verses and verses that I memorized as a kid because I was encouraged to do so. Here's what he says. We're in Proverbs chapter 3. We're going to do verses 5, 6, and the first part of 7. Proverbs chapter 3. Here is his answer to the question of how do we know what to do in terms of the path that we choose. Here's what he says. Proverbs 3, 5. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. That is in every arena of life, and he makes that clearer in just a minute. In every arena of life, every possible path, every category of path, trust, that is lean hard into not information, not insight, not even the wisdom of God, not even facts and information that come from God, but lean hard into God himself. Because the answer to life is not information and insight. It is the person of God who has invited and commanded us to lean hard into him. And again, Solomon's the one that could have bypassed this and said, hey, I don't really need to lean hard into God. I already had that conversation. I got all the information I need. He says, I'm telling you, it begins every day. It's not a one-time thing with making the decision to trust. That is, place all your confidence, all your faith, all your hope in the person of God. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. And flip side, lean not on your own understanding. And the Hebrew phrase there literally means to prop something up against something else. He says, your tendency in mind, and we struggle with this every single day, all of us, your tendency in mind will be to make decisions based on our way of seeing the world and what we've experienced in the world. And here's how we say it. We get in conversations, and men, we're the worst. We say, well, the way I handle that, the way I see it, the way we do that, the way I've always done it, the way I handle that situation. And man, we get in conversations and we don't listen. We just wait for the other guy to stop talking so we can say, I had that come up one time. Here's what I did. Let me tell you what I did. Here's when I. Because our tendency, mine as well, and I do this for a living, I'm supposed to know better. My tendency, my knee-jerk reaction is to lean hard into my experience, my worldview, my knowledge, books I've read, experiences that I've had, to lean on my own understanding. And that's not to say that this year you shouldn't be wiser than last year based on life experience. It's not to say that we shouldn't gather knowledge from everybody we read and everybody we're around. Of course, there's that part of it. But Solomon is sort of slicing this pretty thin. He's going, look, even with all of that, even with all you know, all you've learned, all of your life experiences, the things you've learned from other people, the things you've learned the easy way, the hard way, even with all that knowledge and wisdom, don't make the mistake when it comes to choosing the paths of life and making decisions in life of thinking I'm old enough, I'm wise enough, smart enough, cool enough, slick enough, careful enough to be able to lean on my own understanding. He says, even with all my wisdom and knowledge, every day I refuse to lean initially on my understanding of whether it's marriage, business, education, relationships, whatever it might be. Lean not. Don't prop yourself up. Don't prop your decisions up on your own understanding. Now, when I was preparing for this, I could not help but think of an incident that happened this May, and it's kind of a personal illustration. I don't know if it'll help you or not, but this past spring, Sandra and I had the opportunity to take Sandra to Italy, and she's wanted to do this for a long time, and we finally saved up money, and she planned it, and we were going to do it on her 40th birthday, but we ended up doing it on her 41st, had to wait a year. And Doris and Howard Bowen, with some of you know Doris and Howard, so the four of us went to Italy and had a great time. And we went to Florence, and again, I've never been at very many places in Europe. I'm not a world traveler, so it's all kind of new to me. So we went to Florence, we had a car, and we had, I don't know how to say this, we had two do you say GPSs or GPSI or GPS? Anyway, we had two of them, okay? We had one in the front on the dashboard, and Howard was in the back with one of these stuck on the side window. So we were like, we had all the addresses, everything programmed in, because I don't have a GPS, so this was all new to me, and it's, turn left in 200 feet. Then it says, you idiot, you missed it. Now reprogram, then you have to wait, and then there's, whatever happened in the sky, lost satellite signal. So we're kind of doing that whole thing. So we get to Florence, we have to find our hotel, and we could get to the front of our hotel, but it's like a one-lane street, and no one will stop. So we had only option was to drive by the hotel and throw one piece of luggage out at a time, because you couldn't stop because it was just one lane, and we knew that wasn't a good option, or everybody jump out real quick. And so I decided, well, there's probably a back entrance to this hotel where you actually park and unload, and so we're going to try to find it. And the GPS just kept sending us down these, and I just got tired of it. So I said, look, turn it off, I'll get us there. Okay. I've seen The Italian Job twice, and I've been driving for 30 years, and granted that movie was in Venice, not Florence, but still, I've seen pictures of Florence. I'm sure I can get us to the back entrance of the hotel to unload the luggage. I mean, we've been going around in circles for 15 minutes. I think I figured it out. So I take over, and in a few minutes, Sandra says, Andy, there are no cars on this street. And sure enough, we're going down a street that's full of people, hundreds of people in the front, behind us, on the side, and literally we are the only car on this road. And I realized we're like in a pedestrian area in our car. And as far as I can see, it's just hundreds of people, all these down. In fact, I went out the next morning real early before many people got there and took a picture of this street, just to kind of give you an idea. So this is the street. This is like so early, no one's gotten up yet. This street was like wall-to-wall people, and we're driving very slowly, and Sandra and Doris and Howard are in the car and not making eye contact with anybody outside the window as the Americans make their way. So as far as I can see are people, so I think, well, again, I'm not going to act like I'm out of control. It's like, I know where we are. This is going to work, because I can just kind of tell, because, again, I've seen that movie a couple times. So I decide to take a right, because I'm thinking, if we're lost, maybe I can turn around. So I turn around, and we pull, we take a right, and I pull onto, not knowing, this giant plaza. Okay? This is like the most famous plaza in Florence, one of the most famous plazas in Italy, one of the most visited plazas in all of Europe. This is where the statue of David originally was, okay? It was built in the 13th century. You're not supposed to drive on it. I never say the name right. If you ever go, it's the Piazza della Signoria, okay? And if you ever go there, it's like incredible, and there are thousands or hundreds of people at this time, all crowded, all these restaurants and all this music, and it's so cool. And there we sit, and I did not mention, in our Ford minivan. And a Ford minivan is great in the United States. It's not so great in the world of Mercedes and Volvos. And by the way, they make the Ferrari there. So there we sit, the four Americans. And we are completely surrounded by people that are going all different ways. And I was so overwhelmed, I really didn't know what to do. I literally got out of the van and closed the door and just walked off into the crowd and left them sitting there in the van. That's what I did. Because now things were totally out of control. We could not back up. We could not move. We were going to be arrested. And people, of course, are walking by looking at the van like, Americans. There we are in a van. And Sandra and Doris and Howard literally are just, they're not even looking at each other at this point, because now they're stuck, and I've disappeared into the crowd, because I thought, I really don't know what to do. So eventually I come back to the car and we slowly, back up. Excuse me, so you got the windows down. Excuse me, pardon me, people. And if you've ever been to Europe, the whole crosswalk and don't walk, that doesn't exist. They make fun of that there. That the Americans, they wait, they give so much space because everybody just walks around. So finally we get the car turned around. Finally we get back on the road. Now we're creeping back down that same road the other way, slow, because people are, 360 degrees. Finally I see it, there's other traffic and we get out and I'm, totally humiliated. And it's a little funny now. I promise you, it was one of the more stressful moments of my adult life. And I assure you, it might have been the most stressful moment in the 3 passengers, especially when I got out of the van and left them there in the plaza. Now, my point is, that's an illustration. That's an illustration of leaning on your own understanding. And we do it all the time. Well, I can handle this. I can handle this with our kids. I was a kid once, so I know how to parent. Excuse me? Yeah, I was a kid once, so I know how to parent. Is that like I had a surgery once, now I can perform a surgery? Is it kind of the same thing, I can handle this. I'm a man. I'm in charge. I own my own business. Back in our other corporation. Every single day of your life, every single day of my life, I am tempted to trust in my understanding of the world, relationships, money, and everything else. And the wisest man in the world says, look, if you want to end up on the right path, if you want to have direction from God, direction doesn't begin with a search for direction. Direction begins with submission. Submission precedes direction. That you begin by trusting in the Lord with all your heart, which means, God, I want to trust you with my finances, even though I don't even know what you say about finances. God, I want to trust you with my marriage, even though I don't even understand everything you say about marriage. I'm not going to wait until I have 3 bad options to come to you for advice. I'm letting you know up front, I am trusting in you with all my heart, and I'm not going to lean on my own understanding, even before we get to those forks in the road. Then this is what he says. He repeats himself for emphasis. Verse 6, in all your ways, your marriage ways, your entertainment ways, your dating ways, your morality ways, your education ways, your professional, in all of your ways. Now, I don't want to rush by this. Not just on your Sunday ways. Not in just your religious ways. Not in your, I'm going to try to get some good luck from God because I went this and did this and prayed this and bowed and, no. In all means all, in all of your ways. That is, in all of your paths, in all the different avenues of life, in all of your ways, acknowledge Him. That means that you learn to live your life with a God component in every single avenue and every single aspect of life. That you acknowledge God in your relationships. You acknowledge God in your finances. You acknowledge God in, your marriage with your children, whatever. Yet somehow you learn to invite God in, acknowledge God, that God, you are the Lord over my money. You're the Lord over my marriage. You're the Lord over my friendships. You're the Lord over my entertainment. You're the Lord over my weekends. You're the Lord. I'm going to acknowledge you in every single component of life. In all of your ways, acknowledge Him. And then here's the promise. And He will make your paths straight. Or you could add a word. And then He will make your paths straight. As a result, He will make your paths straight. At the end of the process, He will make your path straight. And the little phrase, make your path straight, literally means He will make the way clear. Or He will clear the way, or He will make the way plain, or in our terminology, you will know which path to take. But you see, submission precedes direction. Our problem is, and as a pastor, I find myself in these conversations all the time, and that's okay, it's part of the territory, but it's so frustrating to me because people come to me, and they probably come to you, you've been in these situations, where people come and they've made these decisions, now they have 3 options or 2 options, and they're all bad. All of a sudden there's a mess in their marriage, mess with their kids, or professionally or financially things are upside down. It's like, I'm trying to decide what to do. What do I do? And so often I go, I'm thinking, I don't say it because I'm polite, I don't know what to do, but I know what you should have done. I know what you should have done 8 miles from here before you got to I know what you should have done 4 years ago. I know what you should have done 6 years ago. And of course, you're thinking, well, of course, everybody knows what you should have done 6 years ago. Hindsight's 20/20. Exactly. I mean, it's clear looking back. Exactly. That's why God, who knows the future, says to you and says to me, would you please let me work with you to keep you out of the situations where you have 3 options and none of them are good? Where the eggs are so scrambled we can't unscramble and we're just going to have to start over? Would you be willing to, on the front side, before you need to come to me and say, oh God, what do I do, what do I do, what do I do? Would you be willing to acknowledge me in all of your ways? Because if you do, I will intervene in your life and I will make the paths clear. You don't need more information. What we need is submission. We don't need more clarity, and we don't simply need more insight and wisdom. On the front end, we need submission, because we've all taken good information and ignored it. But when we begin to wake up every day of our life and we begin to make this daily decision, God, I'm going to acknowledge you in all my ways. Before the information, before I even know what the options are, I'm surrendered to you. Your Heavenly Father says, I want to make the path clear. I want to clear the way. I want to help you know which path to choose. But it begins not with asking for direction. It doesn't begin with, God, I need more information. It begins with absolute, total submission. Acknowledge me in all your ways. And I can't wait to make the path clear.